Advisor.
Hello and welcome to Education Talk. Now, this is one of your best programs on education on television, where we review various challenges faced by educationists, teachers, parents, and even government policymakers, and bring solutions to these challenges to you. I'm Wilma Izimako. And on this program with me today is Dr. Strive Masiyiwa. He's an education consultant, and he's also an advisor to presidents and prime ministers. Dr. Strive, you're very welcome to our studios today.
Thanks for having me.
Let's see what's first on the list for this week on education. The UK must strive to eliminate illiteracy and innumeracy in our lifetime. The Education Secretary, Michael Gove, has said he likened the challenge to past efforts to eradicate deadly diseases. Let's watch this clip.
We need to ensure that in our lifetimes we eliminate illiteracy and innumeracy in Britain. In the same way as developing nations know that they need to secure clean drinking water and eliminate malaria if their children are to flourish, and in the same way as our forefathers more than 100 years ago knew that they had to eradicate polio and TB if children were to flourish, so we've got to ensure that no child grows up in modern Britain with their futures irredeemably blighted by the preventable conditions of illiteracy and innumeracy. And that's why I'm introducing policies to make sure that children leave primary schools fully literate and numerate. So by the end of year one, every child is now checked to make sure that they're decoding words fluently. That helps teachers to make sure that pupils are making progress in reading, and they identify any child who may need extra help as a consequence of dyslexia or any other condition. The basic standards that all schools and all children must reach will be made more rigorous, with more demanding multiplication and division, and more stress on fluent comprehension. We want at least 85% of primary school pupils to reach the level of literacy and numeracy that means they're on course to get good grades at GCSE. It's in all our interests that we ensure that the next generation secure the quality of education they need to flourish fully as individuals and to contribute fully to our society.
Dr. Strive, let's look at some of the points that Education Secretary Michael Gove has raised there. He said, 1, at least 85% of primary school pupils should reach the level of literacy and numeracy, that is, they are on course to get good GCSE grades. The second, the basic standards that all children must reach will be made more rigorous, with more demanding multiplication and division, and more stress on fluent comprehension. Now, Michael Gove has laid the framework, but what more needs to be done?
It's very sad that we're discussing this today. The 85% he's dreaming of, his gold standard, does not compare with our international competitors. We are leaders, we don't follow. So if you're saying that we are expecting 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 boys and girls to be able to read and write, because that's essentially what we're looking at. Literacy is reading and writing. Numeracy is being able to count, be able to work out change, and interact with numbers. If we are not taking that for granted now, then we have no business putting the man on the moon. We haven't looked at the children that came out of our womb. Why do we need to explore the planet? We must settle down and give them 100% of our children. Every one of them are given to us by the Creator to look after, to nurture, and to bring the best out of them. If we are saying we're telling the Creator we can only get 85%, that's not good enough. We have the mechanism, we have the technology, we have the wherewithal. We have technology to send a man to Mars. Why can't we just sit down and say all our boys and girls before they are 11 must be able to read, write, add, and subtract? The seminar we had a while back that we're talking about Secret of Exam Success video, you can get the video and see how basic it is. It is so basic. We are disabling a child if we don't give that child the basic tool to be able to survive in today's world. Because nobody, literally, can survive without this very, very fundamental. And then our competitors, that's what is also interesting. Our European cousins, the French, are not settling for that. The Germans are not settling for that. The Far East, we just cannot even talk about the Far East. They are 3 academic years ahead of us, but they read the books that were published by us. So his dream is great for the situation we are in, but it's still a crisis if we don't get 100% of our boys and girls to read and write.
And it's definitely possible to get 100%. 85% is just not enough.
It's not enough. If I have 5 children, I don't know how I can work out the percentage of those that should not be able to read or write. Which one? Is it the first half or the second half or the middle half? If I don't expect any of my children to fail, why would I expect any of my neighbors' children to fail when I don't have enough children to cover all the professions? So that's a folly of saying that we are satisfied with 85.
Okay, no, 85 is not just good enough. Now let's see what else is happening. To some grades, a new top-level GCSE grade will be awarded to the most talented 20,000 pupils each year in proposals for a shake-up of England's exam grades. The Ofqual exam regulator has launched a consultation on a grading system that will rank from 9 at the very top down to 1 for the lowest performers. The changes to be introduced from 2017 will also link exam grades to international PISA tests. Now, linking these exam grades to international PISA tests and having 20,000 pupils, the best and most talented. Is this a step in the right direction?
It will be great if we pilot the scheme, get a few schools and say, let us see how, if we regrade, what will happen to them. Would that motivate? Because the whole essence of testing is to assess, we are assessing ourselves. I have taught a class, for instance, of 30 students. I come in and then test them and say, how well did I communicate the facts? Now, if we turn it around and start saying, it's a test of the student's ability, then I'm absolved from responsibility. So if we understand that and then use that in a few schools, sample schools, top schools, middle schools, and the schools are just keeping up the rear, and find out how the regrading impacts the top students, impacts the average student, and impacts the low performing student. If it brings out something positive out of it, fine. If it doesn't, then we should overhaul the entire education system.
So regrading the whole system at once could have consequences.
Yeah,
consequences.
Yeah,
for the
because
system.
We've not had impact analysis done. We've not seen whether we need to retune it or tweak it here and there. We don't know whether the type of questions should be asked should be open-ended, for instance, or whether it should be multiple choice. We want to see whether we're testing ability, or we're testing knowledge, or we're really testing aptitude. We're trying to bring out aptitude. If we know what we are targeting, then we can refine it to be able to express that and know, oh yes, these are students that have already understood the basic concepts and are expressing them in ways that will be useful in the real world. And that's what the PISA test does. The PISA test essentially looks at how are you able to apply the knowledge you have, rather than just asking, can you remember what you were taught?
And you think it should be linked with the PISA test?
Oh, it should be so, because PISA is international. Every single OECD country participates. And what is more, non-OECD countries have now opted in to the PISA test.
Quite interesting. So a step in the right direction, but a pilot scheme needs to be carried out first. Now, too many nurseries are failing to ensure children are ready to learn when they get to primary school, Ofstet's Chief Inspector says. Sir Michael Wilshire says England's poorest children are especially badly served, as only a third reach a good level of development in preschools. Is this a fact that only a third reach the required level in preschools? And what should parents do?
I'm very worried. It says ready to learn. Most children, I'm very, very worried, because every healthy child is inquisitive. They ask you, why is the car moving? Why is the sky blue? The why tells me the child wants to find out the reasons behind it. The child wants to explore the environment. So if you say only a percent are ready to learn, I don't know, do they mean formal learning? Do they mean curriculum-based learning? Do they mean exploration? Because if we don't define it, we'll assume that they are behind when they are in fact ahead. We need to respond to their need and be very clear that a child does not start on the wrong footing. If it starts on the wrong footing, it's like starting your marathon a little bit later than all the group, and you find out that you always lag behind. So it's a long-distance race, education, very long-distance race. So we need to have a firm foundation and be very clear that we are preparing the child for enjoying the process of exploring their environment, and not just saying we want to take them through the process of schooling. which is a formality. That means you turn up at this time and you leave at this time. And we don't really look at, we don't understand what gains have been made by a particular student.
What do you think parents should do to better prepare the kids for preschool and nurseries?
The parents must believe that they are the #1 educator of their child. You must believe that what you do in the house reflects what you want the child to do. If you come back from home and from work and open the newspaper and read, what you are telling the child reading is good. If all you do is never read, never have anything to do with reading, then you are sending very, very subliminal signals to the child. When you come back, you pick up a classical text like the Bible and you say you want to share at least once a week, and then you read it, the child understands the Bible is to be read. If you have a daily devotional, I don't see why anybody should not have any daily devotional. If you read it every day, the child believes reading is a daily activity. So you don't even need to tell the child some things, they just observe you, and because they've observed you do this over and over again, so, oh yes, that's what you do, can I have mine as well? And they pretend. That's what children like to copy their environment. So if you give them a very positive environment that encourages learning, that encourages exploration, that child will grow up to be somebody that is so mature, you won't believe it. Why? The child has explored all the options.
Which means learning to read actually starts from the home, not from the classroom. And this helps the children to be fluent when it comes to comprehension.
Yes, because they've seen you hold on to the Bible you're reading. And they ask you, what is that, Mommy? And then you say, oh yeah, this is what God tells us to do. It's how God tells us to live. It's how we can relate to one another. So what are you doing? You're educating the child. And then the child says, can I have a pictorial Bible? Can I have a children's Bible? Can I also have one myself? If they've never seen it, they will never ask for it. And then you can go back next time you're shopping, you can buy a toy Bible for them or a children's Bible for them. And then they have a look at us, oh yeah, that is it. That's the story of Moses. That's the Noah's Ark. So they see these stories, they understand it, they ask you questions, you explain to them, it builds their confidence, it helps their comprehension, and then going to school will just be a routine. They'll just phase into it. It won't be a stepping up like some students will experience.
Now, for some parents who are wondering, what do I need to do to get my kids ready for school? You can send emails to educationtalk@loveworldtv.co.uk. Next, let's look at entrepreneurship. The next edition of Fortune magazine catalogues the world's 50 greatest leaders. And Dr. Strive Masiyiwa, the founder and chairman of the telecoms giant Econet Wireless, is number 35. His guiding principles are based on the Bible. He said that many times. He's one of Africa's most influential figures, and he redesigned his business processes to help communities. Let's listen to him now and watch this clip.
This one's for Strive, and it comes from someone in New Zealand, Yong from Non, and it reads as follows. You've said that the current way of doing business is not sustainable. How would you change businesses to make them more sustainable? And rather than talk for about 2 afternoons, can we have that's a big question, but
you have a very good example of something you've done in your own company in Africa.
Absolutely, Richard, and I love New Zealand. I started a business there. I hope it's morning, right? No, it's night. You know, as Richard was saying, sometimes it's just by changing some of your own processes. We, for instance, in our business as a telecommunications company, we found that a big piece, despite the great success which we've had in Africa, where millions and millions of people now have cell phones, one of the negative impacts, of course, is that we drive those networks using diesel generators because we have no access to power. Now, we've begun to remove those diesel generators and replace them with solar power, but we're also helping the subscribers themselves because they have no access to power. So they buy diesel generators or have to go to the local business center to access power. So we designed a little solar lantern, which has a solar power unit to charge their phones. So you can redesign your business processes in very basic ways sometimes. So in that case, we're helping the people with access to power, but we're also helping the planet itself with the carbon footprint.
Dr. Strive Masiyiwa, the founder and chairman of Econet Wireless. Dr. Chris, what can other entrepreneurs learn from him? Because a lot of students want to become entrepreneurs. Not everyone wants to just go straight into full-time employment. But what can they learn?
If you focus on, because he said it was very clear there, if you focus on your customers, if you have a business that is customer-centered, there's no way you would not go very far. Irrespective of the social status of the customer, he talked about poor or members of the community that he was serving that had poor social amenities. He invested in that. He was not just interested in selling his product and pleasing his shareholders. He knows that if he doesn't have customers, there's no way he can return any profit, let alone dividend. So if you want to be very successful in business, you cannot ignore the biblical principle he's talking about here. He said, he who helps the poor lends to God, and there is no way God can be a debtor to you. So the flourishing of his business, his leadership in technology, he's managed to bring that back to the whole thing about corporate social responsibility, and has redefined it on a new level, where he says, if the customer is happy, the customer will come back for more. If the customer is unhappy or the customer is going through all sorts of problems, you will not have a business. So that's quite instructive, and anyone that is thinking seriously of being successful at a global level, not just a local level, you must look at the whole customer. Probably another thing that may not be very evident is how he delegates different responsibilities within the organization, which is essentially saying the so-called division of labor, which comes from the book of Numbers. Anybody that's very keen on business will know that you cannot do everything on your own. Moses was told, you cannot do everything on your own. You have to select 70 others, delegate responsibilities to them, and then come back again and just supervise them. And economists have picked that up from the scriptures, and they're now calling it division of labor. Really, division of labor started from the book of Numbers chapter 11 verse 16, saying you can give responsibility to people, and then you come back and say what they are doing, and you come back and check. And the way he's diversified across the nations of Africa, remember, he's not just in one location, he's not in two, he's multiple locations. You've got to apply that. If you can't apply that principle, you might as well call your business quit. So the more the Bible you read, the more the Bible you know, the more successful a businessman you are.
Thank you, Dr. Chris. Well, Dr. Strive Masiyiwa is one of the world's greatest leaders, number 35, according to the Fortune magazine, and a lot to learn from him there. Now, you recently presented a paper in Parliament titled Education More Than a Classroom Activity. What were the key points?
We're looking at, most people think learning is the same thing as schooling. So when they finish schooling, they say, oh yeah, that's fine, I will never learn again, or I'll never take any exams again. No, the more you leave, the more you learn. So you might as well take very positive steps to make sure that you define what you learn. Because even if you don't want to learn, if you get involved if you're involved in an environment, you will get to know new facts. You meet new people. You hear new ideology. That will form your thinking. That will inform your action. That will inform what you are doing. So don't think that education ends when you did your graduation ceremony after getting your degree, or ends when you were given a piece of paper saying no. It's ordination for service, really. You are saying, because I've had the privilege of having this body of knowledge, because I have this skill, I'm now going to go and serve. And remember, the skills are going to be obsolete in 5 years' time. Now, with the technology, the life cycle of any piece of information you have is about 12 months. So whatever you did this year, you're not likely going to do next year, or you will do it slightly differently, or you improve on it. It'll be quicker, it'll be better, it'll be more convenient. So there are what they call productivity gains associated with technology. So if you know that, then you have your mind, and you explore, and then you read, and you still have something that you read, and you have to update yourself.
So it's really important to get, to upgrade your skills or get re-skilled if you want to remain very relevant in the system today. And you got this beautiful award here. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, it's for the little work we do in education, and they give us the award for innovative education. That means not doing one thing the same way every time, because there's always room for improvement. You cannot tell me you're perfect. If you say you are perfect, it means you've not reflected on yourself. It means you've not looked back at what you've done. You are taking your measure of success as a world standard and a continuum standard. That doesn't happen that way. They say, we know in parts, we prophesy in part. Revelation is always progressive. If revelation is progressive, then you need to go back and say, how best can we deliver this? What can we do to make sure that every single child that is under my care, every single student that I teach comes out more successful than every other student taught by somebody else? If you have that mentality, if you have that impression in life, your students will be giants. If you don't, then you just work because you are occupying yourself. You're not doing it as a vocation, you're not doing it as a calling, you're doing it as an occupation, something to keep you busy for now. And everyone needs to learn to rise above just doing it as an occupation and doing it as a calling.
Which means expecting our kids to learn the same way over and over again and come out with a different result is merely madness.
Yes, you can't do the same thing over and over again. If you pick up the book of Revelation, you say that it said the knowledge increased. Well, I was looking at the last, it said the knowledge increased. It was not talking about incremental increase, it was talking about exponential increase. So that when the knowledge of God filled the whole world as the waters cover the sea, that's the song goes that way. So your knowledge, it will always increase. So you put up your mind for that and you work towards that. And don't work with the old edition, step up to the new edition.
What innovations needs to be brought into our educational system right now?
Right now, we need to know that your mobile phone, we need to know that your computer, we need to know that the internet are all tools that must be used for learning. Because the biggest mindset people have is that these tools are for entertainment. So they never deploy it when they are doing anything serious. They've not managed to watch the video or animation of digestion. If you see that, there's no way you will not understand the concept of how food goes through the body and is assimilated, digested and absorbed. You look at the mechanics and say, oh, no, I can never resolve forces. But if you watch a if you watch a movie of it, you say, okay, yes, that's the movement in this direction. That's the movement upward direction. That's the movement sideways direction. That's what we need to do in terms of resolving it. So most people are losing out because they are not using the technology. They're using yesteryear's technology. Yes, real yesteryear's. Just black and white. So we need to be able to do things and know that we cannot do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result.
Now, before we round up, let's talk about Easter revision classes. What parents need to do?
It's interesting because anywhere you go now, all you see is Easter egg. Nobody talks about the resurrection. Nobody talks about display of power, because Easter did not start essentially as an egg or a chocolate festival. It started essentially, why? There was a resurrection. That means the birth, something coming true that was there before, is a renewal. So if you're a student and you are in specific years in school, it's an opportunity for you to renew your knowledge as well and prepared, because when we come back from the Easter break, the Easter this year is displayed forward. It means when you come back from your Easter break, the distance between Easter and your exam starting has therefore shortened because we are taking it late. So you must, if you're in Key Stage 2, coming up to the end of Key Stage 2, Year 6, you must not spend the Easter just playing. You have to book yourself into a revision class of one sort or the other. You must keep the bell ticking, because if you don't, you forget what you've known before. If you're in Year 11, at the end of your Key Stage 4, get yourself in an Easter revision. If you don't know of any, you can email us. Some of them are even online. So you don't need to leave your home. You sit at home and you watch it on your computer. So you have webinars that help you through Easter. You have videos that are available to you online, Ustream. There are a lot of facilities and they don't cost you anything. If you have access to the internet, that's all you need.
Access to the internet is all you need. No internet at home, you can go to the library. Thank you so much, Dr. Chris. We look forward to having you again.
Pleasure. Thanks.
Viewers, it is Education Talk. If you've got more questions, you can send emails to educationtalk@loveworldtv.co.uk. Next week, we'll be looking at Cambridge University and why they confer degrees in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost. Enjoy the rest of our programs.